is the author of a new book called Corporate Instinct, Building a Knowing Enterprise for the 21st Century.
Thomas Koulopoulos is the author of the new book, The Innovation Zone. Tom, thanks for joining us.
You bet, Chet. My pleasure.
And what's kind of the role of style and panache in something like the iPhone?
There's always an element of style and panache and design to good innovation.
Thomas Koulopoulos believes that with his help, we can do a lot better. He's written a book about that. It's called Economy, Profiting from Instant Commerce. Here with me is the co-founder of the Boston-based international technology think tank, the Delphi Group, and author of The Innovation Zone, Tom Koulopoulos.
First one, my guest tonight says it's time for America to wake up and smell the coffee from the developing world. Thomas Koulopoulos is the CEO and founder of Delphi Group, a technology and management advisory firm, and the author of Smart Sourcing, Driving Innovation and Growth Through Outsourcing.
If you think about the real cornerstone of progress over your lifetime, much less the last 200 years, what would it be? What word would come to mind when you think about that? What's allowed you to achieve what you have in the world? What's created the prosperity that we have in the world or that you have in your life? What is it? In a word. Can you think of a word that defines it? Anyone? Imagination. Powerful word, and absolutely at the root of so much of how we individually succeed. What else? Any other words come to mind? Yes? Innovation, absolutely, yes. Desire, need, the mother of invention. Well, let me sort of turn the tables on you. Let's take it from the other perspective. What if I were to say that same word, not a different word, that same word should also describe how we are going to face and overcome the greatest challenges going forward? This word will define how we deal with, contend with, and overcome uncertainty. Same word that answers both questions. Any other words come to mind? Survival. I've often said you don't build the future, you survive it. Absolutely. Absolutely. Change. Perhaps. Mine's a much more mundane word. Much more mundane. You see, I think what we're really good at, what we've done incredibly well, and what we are just beginning to appreciate in terms of the value it has to us in dealing with uncertainty, is our ability to connect. And when I say connect, I mean in the broadest possible terms. The broadest possible terms. In ways that we're just beginning to feel. And these are very disruptive connections. They're not always good connections, right? I mean, you like I, we're tethered like wildlife. We're tagged with our cell phones and our PDAs and our smartphones and our laptops. There is no escape, is there? Where do you go? For the first time in the last few years, landlines globally have been decreasing. So we went from 1.3 billion to 1.2 billion last year, I believe. And what's increasing are wireless lines. So we're at about 4.5 billion, I think today was the last number I heard, of cell phones provisioned globally. There's only 6 billion people in the world, folks. 4.5 billion cell phones, and only 6 billion people in the world. And I imagine the rest of those, 1.5 billion are probably under the age of 10. So everyone's got a cell phone, is the conclusion that I draw from this. I'm not sure it's a good conclusion, but the numbers certainly point to that. This becomes the window into the cloud, that smart device. So when I think about, and I try to imagine what the cloud's going to look like, I don't think about my laptop. I think about whatever device I'll have on my person. So, is that going to be my iPhone? Will it be my iPad? How many of you at this point actually have an iPad, just out of curiosity? Wow, more, half, probably 60% of the room. So I have to share with you my experience around the iPad. When I first got this, I had no idea what I was going to do with it. None. It was an experiment for me. And I took my then 14-year-old daughter to the store with me, to the Apple store. I love going to the Apple store. I feel young when I go to the Apple store. Do you know what I mean? I feel cool when I go to the Apple store, except when I go with my 14-year-old daughter. And she said, "Dad, you're really going to get one of those?" And I said, "Yeah, Mia, look at how cool this thing is. It's so slick, I can't help myself. Of course I'm going to get one." I said, "What do you think?" And I thought she was going to approvingly nod and say, "Hey, Dad, you're a pretty cool guy. You know that?" She said, "Dad, it's an overgrown iPhone." I said, "What? Really? You don't think it's cool?" She said, "No, not at all. You can't hold it. You can't put it in your pocket. I can't put it in my purse. I just don't get it." And I thought about that. I bought it anyway, obviously. I thought about that for a while, and it occurred to me that maybe what's happening here is that Steve Jobs is getting old. And he's got the same problem I have, which is, it's a lot easier to see this than it is to see this thing. In this new model of work, leadership starts to play a very different role. And I hesitate to say that it goes away, because I've always been a firm believer in the power of leadership. But it certainly begins to disintegrate and becomes much less pronounced. And what you end up with are influencers. Influencers that push the organization the same way that you would have to push a cloud. Today, when we think of leadership, we think of a plow, a bulldozer. When I think of leadership in the cloud, I think of influencers that in very subtle ways can shape the marketplace. This is all about the way marketing today is done over the web. But I think it'll also start to apply to organizations as well. And if you think about what this means in terms of the way we employ people, something really interesting starts to happen. We move from this one-on-one to one-to-many model to a many-to-many model where, we call it crowdsourcing today. I would call it cloud sourcing, where we're constantly employing talent based on the talent that is most appropriate for the job. Now, I want you to stop and think about that, because that's a point so easily lost. Remember earlier I talked about refactoring and how it applies to computer programs and to code? What if you could refactor an organization? Just think about this for a minute. And I know it's tough to let go of all the legacy, but what if you could refactor an organization so that when you have a task, that task always goes to the person, whether you employ them or not, who is the most capable of solving that particular task? And if this sounds a bit obtuse, it shouldn't be, because it's being done. Companies like 9 Sigma, Innocentive, they're doing it today. Companies are posting problems to their sites, and people from around the world are solving these problems. Right? That's reemployment. At the same time, work-life expectancy is increasing faster than life expectancy, which, to put it bluntly, means you're going to be working forever. None of us are going to retire. And in many cases, because we don't want to retire. It's not the financial aspect of it. It's because it's so easy to continuously be employed. So the nature of employment itself is going to change for those who are highly employable to those who are in parts of the globe where they're virtually unemployable. And if nothing else ends up being more than a footnote 10, 20 years down the road, it'll probably be this. The fact that it's so radically changed the ability to employ and to deploy people across the globe.